everyone, and welcome to another obscure Asian story. Japan is going through one crisis after another. Shortages, price hikes, and now even the country's most beloved foods are affected. First, it was childhood snacks, then rice, then matcha. In Tokyo, rice farmers staged a rare protest, driving tractors through upscale streets. They held signs like "No rice, no life," calling attention to low pay and aging workforce and fewer people in farming. The protest comes at a time when many in Japan are worried about the future of rice. Last year, store shelves were empty. Rice prices have soared, up nearly 90% from last year, sparking growing concern about Japan's food future. In response, the Japanese government did something it had never done before. It released 210,000 tons of emergency rice reserves. Just last week, they held a rice auction to help bring prices down. Nearly 142,000 tons were sold. Buyers paid around 21,000 yen, or about $143 for every 60 kilograms. That extra rice should hit store shelves by the end of the month. The surge in rice prices began last fall. Several things pushed costs up: higher labor and fertilizer prices, a hot summer, and a big wave of tourists. And yes, foreign visitors are part of the story, at least if we listen to stories headlined by NHK. The number of overseas tourists is booming, and many of them want to try Japan's famous rice dishes like sushi, rice balls, and donburi. At one popular onigiri shop in Tokyo, staff say about half of their customers are now tourists. That rising demand is putting even more strain on rice supplies. And it's not just rice. Matcha is also under pressure. Last year's global matcha craze hit Japan's tea industry hard, and the pressure hasn't eased. Top Kyoto brands like Ippodo and Marukyu Main had to limit how much people could buy. Shelves emptied fast, and both tourists and locals struggled to find their favorite matcha. Even though matcha might be losing popularity in Japan, the rest of the world can't get enough of it. Between 2010 and 2023, Japan's matcha production nearly tripled. Today, over half of it is exported. Why? A big reason is health. Matcha is packed with antioxidants and gives you a calmer, more focused kind of energy than coffee. That's made it a favorite among health-conscious people around the world. Social media has helped fuel the craze too. Matcha lattes, viral recipes, and stylish drinks have spread fast across platforms. In Uji, the historic heart of the matcha world, things are buzzing again after the quiet pandemic years. Tourists are back, cafes are packed, shops are thriving. Restaurants are serving everything from matcha dumplings to matcha ramen. Even on rainy days, the streets are lively. At Chazuna, a local tea park and museum, matcha workshops are booked out weeks in advance. About 90% of the visitors, tourists from abroad. The global matcha boom is exciting, but it's also causing shortages, and more are expected. The market is expected to grow from $2.8 billion in 2023 to nearly $5 billion by 2028. Japan produced over 4,100 tons of matcha last year, almost triple what it made in 2010. These days, more than half of Japan's tea is shipped overseas instead of being enjoyed at home. Unfortunately for consumers, scaling up isn't so simple when it comes to matcha. Tea plants take around 5 years to mature, so planting more won't solve the shortage right away. And even after harvest, matcha production is slow and delicate. The leaves must be carefully ground into powder. On top of that, matcha is only harvested once a year. That makes it even harder for stores in Japan and around the world to keep up with demand. In fact, only about 6% of all the tea harvested in Japan ends up as matcha, and once those tencha leaves are picked, grinding them into powder is no quick job. It's done slowly to protect the quality, so when demand suddenly spikes, there's no way to speed things up. The facilities simply can't keep pace. To help meet growing global demand, the Japanese government is encouraging more farmers to grow tencha instead of other tea types. They're even offering subsidies to support the switch. But there's another problem. There just aren't enough tea farmers anymore. Back in 2000, there were about 53,000 tea farmers. By 2020, that number had dropped to just over 12,000. While the government is backing matcha production, the tea industry is cautious. The matcha boom might not last forever, and ironically, the global matcha craze is also the reason for today's limited supply. Rice production does have some similarities to matcha production, but the reasons behind their challenges are different. Rice prices in Japan have been climbing sharply since last summer, and while it might feel sudden, this isn't a new issue. Just like the tea, Japan has a long history of government involvement in rice production, especially through subsidies. Back in the 1970s, the government introduced a system called gentan, or rice reduction. It was designed to prevent overproduction and keep prices steady. The move came after diets in Japan began to change in the 1960s, with people eating less rice. Suddenly, the country had too much of it, so the government stepped in. They set limits for each region. Local farming cooperatives then divided those quotas up among individual farmers. The word gentan actually comes from reducing the number of tan, which is an old unit used to measure rice fields. But here's the downside. Like with the tea, this system capped how much profits farmers could make. Over time, rice farming became less and less appealing. The number of rice farmers has been shrinking fast, and the business just isn't profitable anymore. At the same time, Japanese people are eating less rice. Diets have continued to shift, and demand has fallen. Add to that the effects of climate change, hotter summers, stronger typhoons, and unpredictable weather, and growing rice has only gotten harder. Back in 2002, Japan began changing its rice policies to focus more on market needs and consumer demand. By 2007, local governments were in charge of deciding how much rice to produce. This shift effectively ended the long-running gentan system. But things didn't go as planned. When rice prices fell by 7% soon after, the national government quickly stepped in, showing just how sensitive the rice market still was. The gentan policy was officially scrapped in 2018, giving farmers the freedom to grow as much rice as they wanted. But that freedom didn't lead to a big production boost. Japan's population is shrinking, and rice consumption continues to drop. Even after ending gentan, the government still gives production guidelines and offers subsidies for switching to other crops. Rather than promoting Japanese rice as a premium export, policies have focused on managing land and encouraging crop changes. Over time, this has intentionally shrunk rice supply. Now the market is so tight that even small spikes in demand cause big price jumps. Take last year for example. An earthquake and typhoon hit around the same time, pushing prices up. Then came rumors about low price reserves, which sparked panic buying. That fear hasn't gone away, and it's created a cycle. People keep buying rice out of worry that prices will rise again. So where does that leave us? Supply is down, demand is up, and the government is responding slowly. The good news, Japan isn't actually running out of rice. There are still large stockpiles, and imports could step in if needed. Part of the confusion comes from what is being called missing rice. Even though production increased by 180,000 tons in 2024, the amount of rice collected by traditional wholesalers dropped by 210,000 tons. That's equivalent to 3.2 billion bowls of rice. So where did it go? It turns out the rice isn't missing. It's just being sold differently. More small and medium-sized businesses and even individuals are now buying directly from farmers. That means less rice is going through the big collection companies that the government tracks, which makes it seem like there's less rice than there really is. This shift began in 2023 when a hot summer damaged the rice crop. Fearing a shortage, farmers and wholesalers scrambled to secure as much rice as they could. Interestingly, rice exports are actually booming. From January to July, Japan exported a record 24,469 tons of rice, a 23% increase from the same period the year before. The total value of those exports reached 6.4 billion yen, a 29% jump. Top buyers included Hong Kong, the US, and Singapore. But here's the twist. Rice grown under export-focused subsidies can't be sold in Japan. If a farmer tries, they have to give the subsidy money back. So even though supplies at home are tight, that export rice is off limits. So even though there's technically more rice, much of it isn't entering the usual retail channels. Some sellers may also be holding onto stock, hoping prices will keep climbing. And since the Ministry of Agriculture mostly tracks large distributors, they're missing a big part of the picture. The Japanese government says there's enough rice, so there's no need to panic. But they're holding back on releasing large amounts of emergency stockpiles. Why? Because dumping too much into the market could cause prices to crash. There's also a catch. Any rice released has to be bought back within a year. That short deadline makes wholesalers nervous. If they can't sell it in time, they're stuck. So rice is still expensive. In March, a 5-kilo bag was selling for about 4,077 yen, or $27, almost twice what it cost a year ago. Agriculture Minister Taku Eto says the problem isn't a shortage, it's a slowdown in distribution. And no, this time we can't blame tourists. The real issue goes back decades. For nearly 50 years, Japan had policies that limited rice production. Undoing that system takes time, money, and effort. Paddy fields need investment, rising costs as well as a weak yen aren't helping. Right now, the government spends over 300 billion yen every year on subsidies that actually reduce rice production. That money could be better used to support consumers or give direct payments to full-time farmers like many Western countries do. These policies have also slowed innovation. Japan hasn't focused on developing new high-yield rice varieties because the system was never built for more production. Today, even China and California get more rice per acre than Japan. From a food security perspective, it's time for change. Japan grows almost all its own rice. It's one of the country's most self-sufficient crops. With the right strategy and better rice varieties, Japan can meet demand. And don't forget the small farmers. Many of them haven't benefited from the price hikes at all. They already sold their crops to co-ops months ago at fixed rates. Supporting these farmers while modernizing the system could be the key to long-term stability. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time and thanks for watching!